to charge you a $500 fine or something like this. That would be prank calling. Prank calling. Good. I'd like to hear from everybody else, though. So I'm hoping someone has a funny story. I want to hear a funny story about April Fool's Day. Constantine, are you there? Constantine? Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, do you have any April Fool's Day stories from today or in the past?
No, I begin to celebrate the full day early in the morning when I almost oversleep my work. I stand up an hour later, but I have been in that time at my work.
Yeah. What about in the past? Have you ever played a trick on someone, like a brother or a sister or a parent or a friend?
No, I don't remember some interesting things.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's cool. Some people do, some people don't. As I said, I'm not really one to do that. So, Professor Smith will be here today. He will join us, but he had a meeting that he had to go to, so he will be here, but he will be a bit late. So there is an activity that I know he wanted to do with you. It would normally be a warm-up activity, but I'm just going to continue with our material on science and religion. And then if we have time, when Professor Smith gets here, then maybe he will share you this other material. It's more fun material for conversation, so it's not pertaining to this topic, but we'll see what he wants to do when he gets here. So what I'd like to do first is begin with discussion of your home task, right? So you were supposed to view this infographic. I realize the size of this infographic is very large, so please make it smaller. Make it, I don't know, 75% or something. Make it smaller so that you can see everything. And so I'm going to ask each of you to remind us. I'm going to say, I'll write this here. What were your predictions? So we're saying about evolution or creationism. Were they correct? And were they correct or incorrect? So as of right now, we're not going to talk about the three states yet. Not the three states yet. Just your predictions and whether or not they were correct. So let's begin with you, Alyona. We'll start at the top of the name list.
Okay, you mean that I will talk about my prediction, but not about the states, yes?
Yes.
Not only my prediction, yes?
Mm-hmm.
As for my predictions during last class, they were not correct. I didn't expect that that such amount of people in the USA believe theory of Christianism really. I don't say that there is no in Russia, but to be honest, I have never thought about it so seriously. And your assignment made me to think more deeply about this question. And after our classes, I read Russian articles about the same resources in Russia, and I found out, and I found out that we have the same situation in Russia, and people doubt. And to be honest, I realized that I have an ambivalent opinion in this question. From the one hand, I always believed the Darwin theory and other scientific facts. I was taught this at school and so on. But from the one hand, I believe Bible and that God is. And as example, I was in Israel 2 years ago, and I visited holy places such as the birthplace of Jesus, Calvary, and his grave, and so on. And I noticed that it was so powerful energy there. I mean, spirit of that place. I was envied by this atmosphere, and I'm confused now. I recognize science, Darwin's theory, and so on, but I have faith too.
Yeah. That sort of goes back to what we talked about during the last class was can you be religious? Can you be a believer? And can you also believe in science? And a lot of people had found that yes, in your own way, you can believe in both. Perhaps you keep them somewhat separate, or perhaps you consider the Bible as a book of life lessons or ways to be a moral, good person, for example. Maybe not everyone takes the teachings literally. Maybe some do, but it comes down to an individual choice, right? And how each person wants to approach the question. That's really good, though. Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to open up the conversation today. Was you talked about your predictions, and then you talked about your own thoughts. Were they surprising, or those things? So that was very good. Thank you. Thank you, Alana. Irina, can you continue for us?
Yes, of course. I find that it's very strange that a huge number of American citizens believes in the divine origin of man and in creationism. Also, I don't know the similar statistic in Russia, but in our country we have a very large influence of the church, particularly in politics. I think you know about it, and but we have obtained exclusively secular education in schools, in universities, except for specialized faculties of theology in university. In my university, we have this faculty. And in Russia, there is a uniform educational standard. It's a formal document which establishes general standards of education. And subject of the federation in Russia, they can't be used in teaching, in students teaching or teaching in schools, literature and theories which doesn't fit into this standard. And I know only scientific views in this question, and I really can't believe that so large a percent of the people with high education believe in creationism.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
I really was surprised.
Yeah, and imagine even, think about what it was probably like in the 1950s. The number was probably higher, although I've seen it somewhere written that there's not that much of a difference, surprisingly, between 1950 and today in terms of people's belief in evolution or creationism. I think there has been an increase in the number of people who believe in intelligent design naturally, because intelligent design is a relatively new theory of the creation of man, right? So naturally you would expect that if it came from nowhere, more people would eventually start to believe it, right? But I suppose I can only hope that as the years pass and people become more and more educated, it is my hope that more people will shift away from creationism in favor of evolution. I have some really other interesting thoughts about this, but I'll save them a little bit later. And then we've got a piece of debate that I really want to show you guys after a little bit more discussion. Thank you, Edina. That was really good.
Thank you.
Konstantin?
I'm not surprised with these figures that many people in America believe in creationism, and many schools teach with creationism science. I don't know science or subject, and because once I have heard about these numbers, different numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, statistics, numbers, yeah.
Yeah, and in our country, in contrary, USA, there was free of religion for about 70 years, and the evolution and the Darwin's theory was the single subject that we teach in our schools. And today, I don't know, is it national? Maybe it's maybe something to consider our educational authorities. But I have never heard about teaching creationism in our schools. Maybe expect Sunday schools in I don't know, that arranged by a church. And I don't know what they teach there. I know that they teach the main program that we have with our education standards, but I'm sure they teach also creationism and other Bible's view on human origin and human history.
Yeah, thanks, Konstantin. Yeah, so you weren't surprised at all by it. Yeah, so you knew a little bit about this already before.
The fact of the matter is I have heard it earlier, about this fact.
Surprisingly, these statistics can even be shocking to some Americans. For example, Professor Lero, Professor Marston, Professor Smith, when they first saw these statistics, they thought, oh, really? Can it be true? And I've seen these same statistics repeated elsewhere online, and that's why I was careful to choose this infographic because, for example, the Gallup poll, and this is where the information from this infographic is based upon the Gallup poll. This is a very, very well-respected polling organization, sort of like your Levada Center, but for us, we have the Gallup Polling Center. And they have very reliable statistics, so I'm very inclined to believe this. But as sad as it is sometimes to admit that so many people believe, it's as sad, at least in my own opinion, because I just think that science, in my own opinion, science can suffer as a result. Knowledge of science can suffer when schools choose to just teach creationism. We want students to have some sort of knowledge about other ways, how the world works, about other theories, how things come about, right? So that's the overall argument. And last but not least,
sorry, do you think that there is a practical, I don't know, that the difference between this subject, I don't know how to say that, has its practical scenes. For example, I don't know what is really origin with evolution or origin with creationism, but I don't care. Don't disturb me.
Mm-hmm. I think for us,
Why this views exist?
Why do these views exist? You know, I think just upon given the founding principles of the United States and the role that religion had in the origins of the United States, the role that it's continued to play, this is something that we've struggled with. Some people don't want the state to be secular, for example. It's written in the Constitution that church and state must be kept separate. Yet, some people say, look at the basis of our society, look at the basis of our country, right? On our dollar bill, it is written, "In God we trust." We have so many of these religious symbols, and it's something that you can still see today. There's definitely a tendency to struggle with, are we going to be a religious society? Are we going to allow prayer in our schools? Are we going to allow people to teach creationism, for example? And are we going to be the sort of modern, developed society that the rest of the world says we ought to be? It's it's a very difficult, a really good question, Konstantin. I think there's not a good answer for it yet. I think you just have to listen to history. Yeah?
Can I ask you, I understand that in the USA, the states have a freedom in this question of scientific or church education, yes, and you haven't got something like a standard like in Russia.
Yeah.
With one conception of education for schools and universities.
This is where federal law and state law can sometimes contradict one another. Technically, if it is a public school and the school receives taxpayers' money, right? So if it, taxpayers' money, now look, right? If it taxes, right? If the school is funded by taxpayers' money, then legally, according to federal law, religion cannot be the basis of that public school. But there are also private schools, which I'm sure many of you noticed, they are the exception. In these cases, when the funding does not come from taxpayer dollars, when the payment comes from elsewhere, comes from parents themselves, then these schools can have a freer hand in deciding what will be taught. In these private schools, they can teach creationism. But then again, I think it also depends on the state in terms of what subjects are mandatory in that state. So there are obvious standards that they have to follow. There are standards that they have to meet. But there are subjects that can be included in addition to the typical curriculum, right? Your typical math, science, literature, history. There can be additional subjects in these private schools. But that's why I'm sure you've read about it when you looked at your states. There's a lot of controversy because even, well, we'll talk about it a little bit later. You can see that there are some cases where public schools manage to get creationism into the curriculum in some way, even though they receive taxpayer dollars, state money. So there are ways to get around this. It's kind of tricky, but it violates federal law in these cases. It's just a question of, can we catch these? Can we take the school district to court? It's a very lengthy process. You see what I mean? I hope that answers your question, though, that there's basically the overall, in a nutshell, there's a big difference between public schools and private schools. And whether or not they can teach religious subjects. For example, whether or not they can teach creationism and evolution. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, good. If you have any more questions, you can always. Yeah.
May I ask you about your so that is it are the principal difference between private and public school, or difference in studying religious? Maybe maybe education in public school is better, no?
It depends. It depends on the school district. For example, some public schools are very, very good. It depends on the amount of funding that they have. If they are well funded, then perhaps they have better teachers. Perhaps their subjects are taught better. But in some private schools, there's a tendency to believe that private schools, because they are private, because they are selective, some people believe they are better. And in some cases, they are. In some cases, private schools have better materials, and they can pay teachers more, for example. But it really depends on the school and where it is located. For example, many inner city schools, they might be overpopulated and have old materials or not have enough money to purchase the kind of equipment or the kind of textbooks that they need. They obviously have textbooks, but whether or not they are the best textbooks, whether or not they are the newest textbooks, whether or not they have adequate technology for all of their students, and even the makeup of the students, because some parents don't want their children to attend inner city schools. Some parents don't want this because they say those inner city schools aren't as good because too many people go to these schools, and they think that the level of the teaching, the level of education received at these schools is lesser than in a private school. Like I said, it depends. It's relative. In some cases that's true, in some cases it's not. Obviously there are some private schools that teach creationism that don't teach children anything about evolution or any of the other actual theories that are out there. So they're shorting children in this way. They're shorting them on their education. So again, it's just important to remember that the context matters. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. It's interesting. I see you. We have a variety of schools too, but in the other understanding, in the other variant, for example, math school or language school, but not religious or non-religious school.
Yeah, and also I'd heard, for example, in Russia that thinking of universities, private universities, you can tell me if I'm correct, but this is what I was taught. Private universities in Russia are worse than state universities, right?
Yeah, because it's different in diploma. You know, state universities, we have a government diploma with standards, but it may happen that private university may become bankrupt and students will not get the diploma in this case.
Yeah. See, and it's different in the United States. Private universities in the United States are usually considered to be very good. Because they're private, it's assumed that they're more selective, that they can choose the best students, for example. So it's different in the United States. I'm so sorry, Nastya, but we've gotten caught up in some interesting conversation. I didn't forget about you. Can you tell us about your initial predictions?
I was really surprised too, because I looked at this issue from the perspective of the situation in Russia, and I didn't think about this issue so much. That's why I couldn't imagine that so many people in America believe that God created humans. And as I understand, this is very, very controversial issue in America, and President's Day too.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Nastya. And then maybe now we can transition from that into, I'd like to hear about the states that you researched and what information you found out. So, for example, how many schools teach creationism versus evolution? And it's important to know, are these schools public or are these schools private? Or what other controversies about teaching evolution or creationism, what other discussions and heated discussions, what other debates are happening on this subject in the states that you researched? Nastya, which 3 states did you choose?
Missouri, Kentucky, and Wisconsin.
Missouri, Kentucky. Okay, and what did you find out?
I found that in the last decade, questions about what students should teach, about Darwin's theory, has been debated in more than half the states. For example, in Missouri, there are currently 2 bills being debated in Missouri. The first House Bill 1472, and it would require parental notification if a school was teaching children about evolution and allow parents to pull their children from the classroom.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second bill would mandate schools endeavor to create an environment that encourages students to debate and discuss controversial issues, including biological and chemical beliefs.
Yeah. And what about Kentucky and Wisconsin?
Kentucky. According to a Kentucky state law, public teachers who teach evolution may also teach the theory of creation as presented in the Bible. And now Kentucky is among several states poised to install the next generation science standard.
Can you repeat that one more time about Wisconsin?
About what?
What did you say about Wisconsin?
Nothing yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, school boards became the first in the nation. They allowed the teaching of various models of origin in each public school science curriculum.
So in the public schools in Wisconsin, they teach evolution alongside alternate theories, for example, evolution, and they talk about creationism, they talk about intelligent design as other options. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's evolution with other theories, mixture. Okay, yeah. And I'm trying to remember, I know that in Missouri and in Kentucky and in Wisconsin, there are private schools operating wherein creationism is taught. But again, these are private schools. And Kentucky, can anybody tell me why Kentucky is a very relevant or interesting case? Does anybody know? So this was one of the very first court trials or debates in the court about whether or not evolution or creationism would be taught in schools. It was called, there was a teacher, his last name was Stokes, I believe, and it became known as the
Scopes trial.
Scopes monkey trial or something. And he was brought to court. I think was he fired from his job, Professor Smith?
Yes, I believe so. And there's a very famous movie about this trial.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in the American movie tradition, first I'll place the link in the chat for the Scopes trial. And it starred Jimmy Stewart, and I'm trying to remember the name of the film.
That'd be interesting. You guys might want to watch it if you're interested in that. But this teacher was fired from his job because he was teaching evolution. He was fired. And they took him to court. And actually, Professor Smith, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he lost this court case.
I believe he did too.
Yeah, so it did not turn out in his favor. Only later did the Supreme Court decide that it was inappropriate in public schools to support one religion openly or another, which is what creationism does. Furthers the agenda of Christianity.
And I had my stars wrong. It was Spencer Tracy.
Oh.
And the film was called Inherit the Wind. And I'm hoping that if you went to YouTube, you could find some clips for it, just if you want to watch some of the film as Professor Storm suggested.
Yeah, that could be interesting, guys. Have you seen that film, Professor Smith?
I've only seen clips from it, but it's very famous.
I want to watch it now. Maybe we should all watch it in our spare time. Inherit the Wind. Yeah.
Inherit the Wind.
About the Scopes monkey trial, famous in Kentucky, about this whole debate of evolution and creationism in American schools. So think about that. That would be interesting. Nastya, thank you so much for that. That was perfect, what you did. Thank you for your research into that. Constantine, what were your 3 states?
My 3 states is Georgia, then Tennessee, and New York. But okay, the states Tennessee is one of I'm not sure, one of the 3 states when the education law is adopted. By this, according to this law, teachers can teach alternative theory to evolution, and of course they can teach creation and discuss strong or weak sides of this alternative theory. The same, the law was came in force in 2012, and the same law existed in Louisiana, and educational standards of Texas is close to this law of Tennessee. Then Georgia has about 34 schools, private schools. that schools are participants of programs for disabled students, I don't know, students or pupils, and in these schools, I don't know that they teach creationism, but it isn't bad to teach creationism in these schools. Okay, and about New York, I frankly tried to find something, but I found nothing. And I expect in one town in New York State near Missouri, I don't know, in a very small town in New York State, there are debates about I don't know about this problem, but one priest said that it will be not very bad to teach pupils by creationism theory, and the states discussed this proposition.
Yeah, yeah. I have to point out too, I have to acknowledge one error that I made. I was thinking of Tennessee. Sorry, Tennessee is the Scopes monkey trial, not Kentucky. I'm sorry, Tennessee. Keep that in mind. Yeah. So, but like in Kentucky, in Tennessee as well, teachers can challenge evolution in classrooms. They can teach specifically on the so-called weaknesses of evolution and can talk about creationism, perhaps in addition to intelligent design. So we see more of a debate in Tennessee, for example, like in Kentucky. But again, the Scopes monkey trial was Tennessee. That was my bad.
Tennessee, Louisiana, and Texas. About Kentucky, I haven't heard.
Yeah. And that was also what Nastya told us, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading something along those lines. But definitely Texas as well. But I'm sure somebody else might talk about that, so I won't say much more about Texas. Irina, can you continue?
No, I can't, because when I went to the club, the home local space were occupied, but today I don't see some guys in our group, but I haven't got really space.
Oh, yeah. Okay, did you read anything at all about the issue?
What?
Did you read anything about?
I read all of these materials for our topic, and it was interesting in one place. When I read about Washington D.C., I have seen the picture of I don't know how to speak English. About global flood, yes?
About what?
Global flood. It's a story about Noah. Noah.
You might have to write it in the chat. Professor Smith, did you catch that?
The new film that's out?
What is it?
The new film about Noah?
Yes, yes. And I saw it the day before yesterday.
Is it actually playing in theaters in Homs?
Yes, of course. This is a film by Darren Aronofsky, and this is a new view on the evolution of our society. And I don't like this film. I don't know. I have some views on this topic, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's showing here in Finland yet. I've heard about it.
You may have seen it before all the Americans saw it. I think it may be opened here in Arlington maybe on Saturday or Friday. And there's a lot of coverage, Carly, in the TV and the press about it. But I'm sort of out of touch with American reality sometimes.
I am too, but actually I'd read a little bit about it, so I knew there was a film coming out, and there was a lot of kind of controversy, and that it was fueling a lot of sort of religious fundamentalism, if we want to say it, adding fuel to that fire is what I have heard. But so you saw it, you weren't a fan of it.
What?
Then you saw it, but you were not a fan of the film.
I can't understand the last part of you.
Oh, to be a fan, Buitsanatam, right?
No. No, I don't think so. I read before watching this film that Russell Crowe, the main hero, the main actor on this film, he went to the Vatican and he asked the Papa of Vatican to give them, I don't know how to do it in English, let me see, the blessing for this film.
Yeah.
And he gave it for Russell, for the editor, Darren Aronofsky. And this is very strange for church when
they endorse a film.
They endorses this film. It's very strange, I think. I'm not. I'm an atheist, but I think it's very strange for church.
Yeah, it's not your usual tradition to go to the Vatican and ask for their permission. Or not their permission, but their approval. Because probably for most films, the Vatican would say, no, this is awful. No. Yes. That's interesting, though. That's a good perspective. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm happy that also we're ending with Alyona's discussion of the 3 states, because she chose 3 very interesting states. Alyona?
As I understood reading that I chose very religious and Christianist states, yes.
Well, not typical. Well, Florida isn't usually considered to be. Well, I'm not going to say anything first. You continue.
But maybe not so Christianist, but there is a very big fight and issue about it according to your articles. And for example, I took some fragments of some articles, and according to someone from this Discovery Institute, I mean Louisiana, which wrote the Louisiana law permitted the teaching of Christianism in public schools, write textbooks that try to undermine science and research about evolution and such theories as natural selection. And by the way, the laws can have impact on state and may and such problems may lead to unity problems. So in Louisiana, Nobel laureate scientists have endorsed the repeal of the Christianist education law there. And the Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology has even launched a boycott of Louisiana and canceled a scheduled convention in New Orleans. They also say about that pushing such laws may hurt economic development there. And one of few states where there is an actual law on the books allowing for Christianist teaching, Louisiana may take a cake. But as for Florida, for example, I found out that fact that 164 schools teach creationism while participating in state tax credit scholarship programs. I mean, for disabled children and children from low-income families. And students might learn there that global warming is a mission. And as for taxes, there is a very heavy discussion in the magazines, especially as for taxes, books, school books for children and salaries. Despite the largest charter program, which receive 82 million in taxpayer money, it hasn't stopped its schools from adopting Christianist curriculum, and it seriously misrepresents the entire revolution there. Maybe that's all.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. First of all, I want to make sure, I also want to get professors.
Shall I talk a little bit about Texas?
Yes, yeah.
I think you gave a very good summary of Texas. There are very active debates. I like that phrase. And you will notice the strategies that you see in all of these states. Sometimes there's a legislative strategy. You go to the legislature in the state and get some support and get some strength. Sometimes you work in the school systems and you find the legislative bodies for schools and you go into discussions about textbooks. What will be in the textbooks? And I think it was a very good summary. Texas is a very conservative state, and so there are many private schools especially that teach creationism. Oftentimes they are religious schools or schools attached to a religion. So in Texas, it's very different from, say, another state like California. California is a very liberal state. And so in California, you would not find that activity in the legislature. You would not find that activity in the schools. So a very good summary of Texas. Very conservative government.
And I was hoping you guys could tell me, do you know what a voucher program is? When Alyona mentioned that there are 164 schools that teach at least some creationism while being on a voucher program. Do you understand what this means?
I might send my text to everybody. Is that correct?
You certainly can, or you can explain to everybody what the voucher program means.
I mean that I may send in a common chat in order everybody can see what I said.
Yes, yeah. So there are ways for schools that receive taxpayer money. Somehow they can still find ways to put creationism on the curriculum, in the curriculum some way. But Professor Smith, do you want to say a little bit about what a voucher program is? Because there's also a lot on the subject saying that some schools receiving funding from tax dollars, being on the voucher program, were able to teach creationism, although that's contrary to federal law.
Yeah, and I think this sometimes gets into the notion of charter schools. There is this class of schools, this type of schools that are not public, they are private, but frequently they are not openly religious. So we have a school in Arlington called the Classics Academy. where they study the classics and study classical tradition. And students go to this special school, and there are many charter schools in Texas, and they are not very well regulated. The state does not look into their curriculum in some cases, or does not control their curriculum. So perhaps they are not associated with a church, but they can be very conservative or very liberal. It's a very entrepreneurial type of school. And then parents are always thinking, how do I get my son or daughter into a very good school? Maybe I live in an area where the public schools are not very good, and I want my son or daughter to go to another school nearby. In Texas, I don't believe we have vouchers, but I can apply and try and send my student to another school, a public school, because a private school will be very expensive. Charter schools are in the middle. They are not so expensive. They have many of the benefits of a private school, but not many of the costs.
Yeah, I was writing some more explanations in the chat.
Oh, thank you. It's very hard, and Americans don't understand it.
Right.
Texans don't understand it. I don't know. So the charter school is just down the street from me. I don't know what they teach. I don't know how they're regulated. I don't really know what they do, but they take taxpayer money to do it.
Yeah, and oftentimes the charter schools, maybe you already mentioned this, they'll specialize in, or they'll have a particular strength. For example, maybe they're really well known for physics education or music education, something like this. And then you also, like Professor Smith mentioned, there are also private schools. And some of the students asked earlier about whether or not private schools are better than public schools. And my answer was, it depends on the school, depends on the context, but that there's often the idea that, or many people think, that private schools are better than public schools. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a fact, right? It's just that they might be better funded.
Yeah, and I think I came in just as you were explaining, Carly, that's very different than the system in Russia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where private schools can be a little more, a good word we might use is tenuous, right? They can go bankrupt, they can have some difficulties.
Yeah, or they can be a last resort for someone who perhaps didn't have the grades, but didn't have good enough grades to get into a state university, but is from a family that can afford to send them to a private something. But as I said, the context is very different in America. Public tends to have a different meaning or a different.
Yeah. And Florida is very interesting. Florida had a Republican governor for many years. His name was Jeb Bush, and he is the brother of George Bush. And so he brought many ideas like vouchers to Florida and their school system. And in fact, I was at a meeting last week where I got to shake hands with Jeb Bush. He was at a meeting where I was. He is no longer the governor, but it was very interesting to meet him and talk to him.
Oh, that's cool. Professor Smith's got the connection.
I don't have a picture of it. We also got to meet Hillary Clinton, too. So
oh, wow, that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
A with plus is excellent, yes?
Right?
Go ahead.
A with plus, it says excellent, yes?
A plus is excellent, yes.
It's perfect. It's a 5.
Yeah, Piaciorka, da.
So I found these pictures from, I believe this was from a school in North Carolina. The school has since been closed down because pictures from this 4th grade science quiz went viral on the internet. They began on Reddit, and then everyone was sharing them. So let's just go ahead and look at this. The subject, Genesis and the Gospel, dinosaurs, right? The Earth is billions of years old, and the student said false. Dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, false, okay. And then, what day did God make dinosaurs? The sixth day. That would be the same day that God supposedly made humans. So, made them at the same time. Dinosaurs lived with people. What did people and animals eat in the beginning? Plants. And then the behemoth. What's interesting here is we go to the second page. Again, you'll have to make this smaller. I'm sorry if it's really big. Please make the size smaller so that you can see it. 11. Whom should we always trust? God. What is the history of the book of the universe? The history book of the universe, the Bible. What did God tell Noah to build? An ark? The ark looked like this. I don't know. I like this here. Can someone read number 18 for me? Maybe Constantine, can you read number 18?
Sorry, repeat, please.
Please read number 18 on this quiz. If you can't see number 18, you'll have to make it smaller and scroll down. It's at the bottom of the page.
You want me to appreciate? Is it false or all true?
No, I want you just to read number 18, the question number 18, and then to read the student's response.
18.
Have to scroll down.
Yeah.
Next time someone said that Earth is billions and billions of. What can you say?
And the students, what was this?
Okay, I can get the impression. The next time someone next time, what is the next time? Someone said that Earth is billions of millions of years. What can I say? I don't know. I can get.
And the student says, were you there?
The next time? Why? What does mean the next time?
The next time, просто в будущее, когда someone asks you, or someone in the future, when someone says the Earth is billions or millions of years old, what will you say? And the student asks, the student's response would be a question. The student would say, were you there? As if to mean, did you see it yourself?
Can you prove it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Earth is estimated, I looked this up because I had to think about how many billions of years old the Earth is. We know that it's billions of years old, but how many? It says 4.65 billion years old. But according to diehard creationists, I think, I need to remember, I want to say it was 8,600 years old.
Or 6,000, I can never remember.
Yeah. But anyway, it's less than 10,000 years old, according to diehard creationists. So that seems kind of impossible, right? And then if we go back to the first page again, the Earth is billions of years old. This is scientifically proven to be true, yet the student answered false and got the question right because this quiz was administered by a creationist. So the creationist says that's wrong. Dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. Dinosaurs lived, I need to look at that. Was it millions or billions of years ago? Millions. Yeah, well, regardless, that can't be so, right? Because the diehard creationist would say that the Earth hasn't been around for millions of years, so there's no way dinosaurs could have been there. What are your opinions or your impressions of this quiz?
It's looks like unusual situation for our schools. But do you mean that this answer is opinion of students? I thought it is not book of child, not students do that.
No, that's supposed to be a fourth grader, someone in a child in elementary school in fourth grade.
But students think in such a way too. Yeah, sometimes.
No, I would, Professor Smith, you can tell me what you think, but I would say this is unusual. I would say most children believe that dinosaurs lived much, much, much longer ago than what creationists would say.
Yeah, and what school did this come from again,
A
Carly?
school in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I guess dinosaurs lived about 230 million years ago to 65 million years ago. So the student answered incorrectly on both of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he was taught. He or she, we don't know actually. The name was blocked out. Yeah, so and Nastia wrote in the chat, it turns out that creationism denies scientific facts. That's the argument, my son, isn't it? Do you think, then, Professor Smith, should we show them the clips from the debate and then have them give some closing comments?
That would be good, yeah.
Okay, now to go from our really interesting conversation and to keep that quiz in mind, there was a month or two ago a very, very well-known, or I guess it was, what am I trying to say? It was advertised very well in the United States between someone who's very pro-evolution, and his name is Bill Nye. And actually, he used to have a television show called Bill Nye the Science Guy. It was like science for children, but very intelligent man. And he was
very famous.
yeah, very famous. Debating, was it Ken Ham?
Yeah.
Yes, debating Ken Ham, who is actually from Australia, but operates the Museum of Creationism in the state of Kentucky. So it's sort of the creationist capital of the United States, at least in terms of, that's the White House of creationism in the United States.
The epicenter, as we say.
Yeah. So he's debating Ken Ham, and widely televised, quite a large audience. So let's watch these highlights from the clip, and then be thinking about your comments, whatever you want to say afterwards. Please mute your microphones now while we watch this, so that we don't have any feedback, please. Thank you. And Aliona, if you could mute your microphone too, and I will mute mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So those are some highlights from the debate. Some of the issues covered here were the ark, the flood, or I suppose not just the ark, but what am I trying to say? How long the earth has existed, the age of the earth. And everybody, you can unmute your microphones. The age of the earth, the ark, and so on. Any comments, anything that you would, I'd like to actually hear from each of you before we end class today. What you think about this, what you've seen. And just from watching these clips, if you think there was probably a winner to this debate. It's difficult to say after only having watched less than 4 minutes of the debate, but maybe you can give us a prediction. Alyona?
It's some association with the head of this person. People, definitely, people who listened to him what came to this meeting because they will maybe agree with him. I don't know. They listen to him. People who understand that it is an abnormal thing in some degree. Not abnormal, it's not the correct word, but people who have the other point of view couldn't go there.
They could go there. The debate was open for people, so it wasn't just pro-creationism or supporters of creationism that were there. It's a mixed crowd. We have some people that are for evolution. We have some people that are against. And again, it was televised nationally as well.
It was a kind of discussion, debate between people of different two views. But the lecture was so looked so confident in what he was saying.
Which one, the creationist or the evolutionist?
Creationist told his version with so enthusiasm, but evolutionist told his answer to him with calm. He was he looked confident, and he didn't use much impressions, much emotional emotions, because he understood that he's right. But creationists need support from audience. That's why he was very impressed. He tried to be.
Irina, what do you think? Who is doing a better job?
Well, excuse me, repeat please.
Who is doing a better job? Who is doing better in the debate? The creationist or the evolutionist?
Of course, I think that, the most beautiful in this debate was the evolutionist. I think it's my subjective opinion.
Your subjective
Subjective, yes, because I'm an evolutionist and I'm not a creationist. But I think when you're right, you're really right. You needn't to make a show from your presentation, and you can be relaxed in these 3 minutes. You can be spokojny,
peaceful or at ease,
yes,
maybe.
At peace, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
What was interesting, what I liked, is that Bill Nye wasn't afraid to say, we don't know. But we are trying to learn, we are trying to find out, and that is what makes us get up out of bed every morning. That is why there is reason to life, to continue learning each day. And his point, and a lot of the reason why he decided to do this debate, I was reading, he wrote an article answering, saying, because some people were saying, why are you even doing this debate? Don't give this creationist the time of day. It's not worth your time. And he said, no, because education is important. And students need to learn these things in school. Students need to learn about evolution in school, because otherwise we are going to be behind the rest of the world in science education on scientific related matters. So that's why he decided to do it, which I think is a very, very good reason for taking part in the debate. Konstantin, your thoughts?
You mean the result of the discussion?
Yeah, your thoughts, and then perhaps who you think did better.
I don't know. Nobody won, and the score is 0-0 because nobody knows how it happened. Nobody knows what happened in the future. It's only words, and I think they are all right. They're right. They're both right. But the truth between them.
Yeah, somewhere between them. Yep. And no one is all-knowing. No one knows everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. And Nastya, your impressions?
Now I even more convinced on evolution because creationism can't answer on basic questions about our origin. And I'm not against religion, but I think that creationism is misleading because we can't deny obvious facts of science. But creationists do this thing, and I can't understand how it's possible.
What is difficult is for example, I have no problem with religion either. Religion is a personal, private matter. If someone believes something, that is his or her right to believe. But the argument about creationism in schools is that we are a secular society. Religion and state are supposed to be separate. Education is the cornerstone or the foundation of a good, healthy citizenry, society. And if you put religion into schools, which many people argue, rightfully so perhaps, that creationism is a reflection of religion or religious beliefs. And when you have that in school, does that violate the principle of the separation of church and state, the establishment clause, that there should be no official religion, right? That's the question. So I hope you all learned something important about creationism and evolution in U.S. schools, and as well as really thought about these topics in your own lives or in your own context. And I just want to say, you guys got a great job in research and discussion, participation. I'm very happy with it. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
And it was a very tough topic, a very difficult topic to explore, a very abstract topic. So you have done a lot of work with vocabulary and phrases. So definitely you'll want to save the chat when you leave, because there's a lot of good vocabulary.
Yeah.
Usually in language classes we do simple tasks, right? How do you buy something? How do you telephone someone? But you guys are such an advanced group. We can do difficult tasks, much more difficult themes. And that's exciting for all of us. So thank you, Professor Storm.
Thank you so much, all of you guys. And I wrote in the chat, if you're interested, you can find as well, you can watch this entire debate on the internet. You can Google Bill Nye versus Ken Ham debate, and you will find it. You can watch all of it. And then there's also that movie that Professor Smith recommended, Inherit the Wind, about the Scopes versus Tennessee trial. So again, those are just some things to think about if you're interested. Does anyone have any questions before we end today?
Thank you for informative and interesting presentation. No questions.
No problem. Thank you so much, Eliana. Good job today.
Very good discussion. Thank you.
It was
Any other?
very interesting lesson. Thank you.
No
I
problem.
really enjoyed it.
Great. I'm so glad. Thanks, Nastya. Good job as well. Everyone did really wonderful.
We'll see you all next week.
Okay, goodbye. Have
Goodbye,
a good week.
everyone.
Goodbye.
You too. Thank you.
Have a good time.
Goodbye.
Bye. Take care.
And actually saying that, Carly, I just realized I'm traveling next Tuesday. So are you okay? I'll get Jan to see if she can sub for me again, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then I think my Tuesdays get better.
Okay.
I apologize. My
okay.
meeting with the president kept going on, and I thought, do I get up and walk out or not? And I really couldn't.